各位，当彭斯在演讲中反复呼吁美国回归自由世界领导者的角色的时候，一个更值得被拆解的问题却被刻意的模糊了。这一些话究竟是在回应世界的真实变化，还是更多服务于美国内部的政治焦虑呢？在中国的视觉下，彭斯的演讲并不只是在讨论国际秩序如何演变，而是在试图重新证明一种正在失去现实支撑的自我叙事。本期内容的核心矛盾正是美国价值话语权与全球结构变化之间越来越明显的脱节。过去几年，美国国内围绕着新右翼、孤立主义、保护主义的争论持续升温。彭斯试图把这一种变化描述为对传统保守主义的背离，但在中国角度的框架下，这一种分裂并非是偶然，而是美国在全球相对地位变化下的自然反应。当一个国家发现自身已经无法同时解决内部问题，维持全球秩序，并承担高昂的联盟成本的时候，意识形态叙事就会被用来掩盖结构性的压力，而不是解释它。真正的核心问题在于，美国仍然把世界理解为需要被领导的对象，而不是一个力量正在被分散、规则中重塑的体系。从乌克兰到中东，再到亚太，美国安全与贸易话语始终建立在利外主义上。盟友必须追随，对手必须被遏制，规则可以选择性适用，但现实已经发生了变化。世界已经不再接受单一中心的道德节裁，也不再把自由贸易与美国领导自动画上等号。中西差异不在于是否重视安全与秩序，而在于是否承认多极世界中，安全必须通过相互的约束，并非单向的施压来实现。当美国继续用冷战时期的道德框架解释今天的竞争，误判便不可避免。在结构落点之上，中国更关注的是结果而非口号。在全球体系中，中国并不试图输出价值的模板，而是通过产业的能力、供应链的稳定与长期规划来嵌入世界运转本身。而美国本身由于孤立主义与领导权的争论，本质上就是对自身路径的困惑，而不是对中国的真实回应。下一步真正值得观察的变量，不是谁能在演讲中定义自由，而是谁能在现实中提供稳定、还有增长和可预期性。这正是理解这一次演讲在中国角度下的意义所在。让我们看一下视频。
I think there's basically three different areas where the so-called new right is at odds with the traditional conservatism that has defined the Republican Party in the United States for 5 decades. First and foremost is many on the new right embrace a new form of isolationism, literally questioning whether America needs to continue to play our role as leader of the free world, as arsenal of democracy. It expresses itself in outright opposition to the support for Ukraine's military following the unprovoked and brutal invasion by Russia just 3 years ago. I have held the view, without apology, that the United States and our allies must continue to give the Ukrainian military what they need until that Russian invasion is stopped and repelled. But there are those in our movement in America who suggest that the United States has to choose between solving our problems at home and being leader of the free world. Well, I would submit to you that for more than 75 years, the United States of America, with our allies like UK, has proven to do just that, and do it quite well. And anybody that thinks that America can't solve our problems at home and be leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth. The isolationism, while some have said it is just restricted to Ukraine, Ukraine is a separate category. It doesn't bear on any other alliances. Just even in recent weeks, it's become even more obvious that that strain of isolationism has made its way to questioning U.S. support for our most cherished ally, Israel. You know, since before the American founding, the American people longed for, and many prayed to see the people of Israel return to the land of Israel. 1948, America was the first nation on earth to recognize the Jewish state of Israel. And along with the United Kingdom, it was our soldiers and your soldiers that at the price of lives and blood won that homeland for the Jewish people back. October 7th was the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust itself. And I am proud that America and our allies stood with the people of Israel through those difficult days and have achieved now a ceasefire and the hope for a framework of peace that can move Israel and the people that live in Gaza and the region forward. But let me be very clear with my friends here at the Oxford Union. America stands with Israel and always will. Now, those that embrace this principle of isolationism, they actually think that somehow isolationism will make the world safer, but the opposite is actually true. The history of a century ago teaches that when the free world pulls back, authoritarian regimes are only emboldened. I said many years ago, weakness arouses evil. And I truly do believe, whether it be in Eastern Europe, whether it be the threats to peace in the Middle East, or whether it be the threats to peace in the Asia Pacific, that peace will only follow if free nations on earth stand strong for freedom and stand strong together. The other example in the new right, as it's known in America, that departs from traditional conservatism is in the area of trade. Now, I come from a state where we do two things well, out in Indiana, in the heartland of America. I tell people we make things and we grow things, and we sell them to the world. I've always known that trade means jobs, and it's been axiomatic for conservatives in America and in this country to understand the vital importance of free trade. But today, many on the new right have embraced protectionism, greatly aided by President Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariffs imposed by a friend and imposed on friend and foe alike. And my judgment is that we ought to be as strong as we need to be on authoritarian regimes that abuse trading relationships. During our administration, we imposed hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs on China after years of trade abuses and intellectual property theft and human rights abuses, as well as military provocations in the Asia Pacific. But beyond that, I believe in free trade with free nations, and we ought to work together. We ought to work together to lower trade barriers. That's what we did during the Trump-Pence years, as I like to call them. We used tariffs and the threat of tariffs as a means of negotiating down trade barriers that get in the way of consumers and get in the way of prosperity. Make no mistake about it, the combination of a return of isolationism and a return of protectionism not only threatens our economic vitality in the long term, it could well set the stage for worse. I mean, the truth is that a careful study of the first half of the 20th century proves that it was the advent of isolationism, where leaders in my country, in fact, in my party, said that what was happening in Europe was somebody else's business. Add to that protectionist measures in the 1930s that extended the Depression in our country, and you have a dangerous combination. Now, I truly do believe if we will hew to our roots, if we will embrace our role as Americans now, as leader of the free world, if we will engage with our allies, like our great ally, the United Kingdom and others, if we will stand for freedom on the world stage, if we will expand our commerce through free trade, I believe the next half of the 21st century will be the greatest half century ever. But conversely, I believe if we walk away from those principles, the second half of this century could look a lot more like the first half of the last century. Now, there's one other issue I would like to speak to among the extraordinary rising leaders in this room, and that is the politics of grievance. You know, the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish, but for too many in the new right or on the progressive left, we have begun to identify our politics by what we're against instead of what we're for. The politics of grievance seems to have taken hold in our country, and I would leave it to your judgment whether it's taken hold here. I mean, I would submit to you that any movement that yields to an agenda of grievance or vengeance rarely finds its way back. I said not long ago, movements built on anger fade, but movements built on principle endure. Chief among those grievances, the most troubling to me is, in recent months, we've heard troubling voices on the fringes of both movements, seeking to dress up old hatreds in new rhetoric. In recent years, we've heard anti-Semitic tropes being spoken even in the halls of the Congress of the United States by some on the progressive left. And now even some on the right are beginning to speak openly in anti-Semitic terms against the Jewish people in our country and yours and around the world. Well, let me say, whether it's whispered in back rooms or shouted in social media, anti-Semitism has no place in the public debate in the free world, anywhere, at any time. You know, I've been asked since I left the White House if I thought that my old running mate has essentially changed the politics of the Republican Party. And as I've submitted to you today with regard to some aspects of the traditional conservative agenda, he has. But I gather here before you today in front of some of my countrymen and many people from the UK and around the world to say that while President Trump and his team at present have changed some aspects of the Republican Party's agenda, I don't believe they've changed the Republican Party. America's core character does not change. I mean, I truly do believe it doesn't change with one leader or one season in history. Our nation has weathered populists, progressives, idealists, and realists, and every shade in between. And through it all, the fundamentals have endured. Americans believe in freedom. They believe in fiscal responsibility. They believe in a strong national defense and in our unique calling as leader of the free world. They believe in the values of life and family that have made our country strong and prosperous and truly great. America will never be defined by one man or one administration, not by the last president, not by the current one or the next. America is defined by the enduring and indomitable spirit of the American people. For all my time serving them as a congressman and as a governor and as vice president of the United States, I can tell you I've come away with the conclusion that the American people are the most idealistic, patriotic, generous, faith-filled, innovative, and perseverant people the world has ever known. We just have to have government as good as our people again. And I believe someday we will, and someday soon. So my last word to you before we have a conversation is don't lose faith. If these ideals and principles I've spoken about resonate with you, be confident that while some of the loudest voices on either side of the political divide are suggesting otherwise, that as the old book says, never doubt that many more are with us than are with them. That whether it be the father of the conservative movement, Edmund Burke, or whether it be the politics and economics of Adam Smith, these things just don't change overnight. They're really enshrined in the heart of free people. I was up in Newcastle last Friday, and I learned from a local historian that Winston Churchill had actually said that America was Rome to Great Britain's Athens. And in so many ways, I stand before you today to pay a debt of gratitude to this great country. And we'll celebrate the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. And it was a time of great conflict between our two peoples. But since those early days, make no mistake about it, we have forged that special relationship that diplomats talk about. I witnessed it firsthand. The American people know that our institutions in our country, the love of freedom, the ideals that go all the way back to the Magna Carta come from here first. We had that breakup, but we didn't leave those principles behind. And neither did you. And that's why one of my favorite Churchill quotes as I close is one that's about faith. As I urge you to hold fast to the principles that brought us all this far, thriving capitalism, limited government, strong alliances, free nations of the world can achieve together. Remember that we're not in this alone. The Bible says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. Later this week, I'll be back at the National Cathedral to bid farewell to one of my predecessors, our former Vice President, Dick Cheney. The first time I was in the National Cathedral was at Ronald Reagan's funeral. And walking in through the narthex, I remember seeing on the wall words of Winston Churchill chiseled into the limestone. And they've never left me from that day. It was from a speech that he gave before the Congress of the United States, really at the height of the Second World War. He came to make Great Britain's case, and so he did, and saved the world. But he closed his remarks before the Congress in a way that I'd like to close. For those of us who cherish freedom, those of you that feel called to public life, heed these words of Winston Churchill. He said, he must indeed have a blind soul who cannot see that some great purpose is being worked out here below, of which we have the honor to be faithful servants. And he closed by saying, I avow and hope in the days to come, the British and American peoples will, for their own safety and the good of all, walk together in majesty, justice, and peace.